to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Sarah Jane Adventure episode, Revenge of the Slitheen, written by Gareth Roberts and is directed by Ashley Troughton. This is the first regular story in the Sarah Jane Adventures. So you see, in the first episode, Invasion of the Bane was basically featured as like a feature-length special to kick off the series. However, here's the first regular format for the series. For you see every story in Sarah Jane Adventures, again except for the first story, are two-parters. Each story is two-parters, and I just want to state off front, before I even talk about anything to do with this story, the concept of this show being two-parters of every story was such a great idea, and it means that each story has time to develop and become memorable in their own right. Like, Torchwood is filled with one-parters mostly, and despite there being some really great episodes, when there are stories that are okay or a bit bland, they do kind of become forgettable. But with Sarah Jane in this format, which is much more in time with the classic series of Doctor Who, it means that each story gets a cliffhanger and is allowed for more memorable and for more entertained storylines. Now, this story is the introduction to Clive, one of the main characters who would appear in every single episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures moving forward, and he would become essentially another companion to Sarah Jane. He replaces the girl who was appearing in Invasion of the Bane. From what I can read up on, the reason Clive was chosen was that they thought the show had too many female protagonists, and so adding a second male protagonist would hopefully balance things out. However, for why the original actress didn't reprise the role, we actually have no idea. Or at least that's what I have read. I can't remember the kid who plays Clive's name is, but yeah. This story, as suggested in the title, features the return of the Slitheen, an alien race that was introduced in Series 1 of Doctor Who. And they were a very vital part to Series 1. They were the elements that got younger viewers into Doctor Who. These giant aliens that make farting noises, and they had this very striking visual appeal, this like giant fat, and they got these long necks. They are very unusual looking creatures, to say the least. And they had this this concept of their farting and stuff. And they take over fat people's bodies by killing the original host and basically wearing their skins as like suits. Now, I find it incredibly interesting that they would come into a child series like this. Sure, they have a lot of elements which would easily fit into a child-friendly show like this. They are these big greeny creatures who, when they're in their human form, are really played up and they're silly and they make farting noises, and usually they're played way over the top and have very humorous scenes. And you can understand why they would, these popular monsters. Remember, in 2005, they were everywhere. You could buy toys of these everywhere. They were in almost all the adverts, and then they just kind of completely disappeared in 2006. It was really strange. The series was seemingly tempting that these were going to be the next big bad. And I think Russell T Davies, who produced the Sarah Jane Adventures, really wanted them to return, and this was a great vehicle for them to appear in. However, I find it strange because their two stories in the main series of Doctor Who were though they are of the baseline very silly stories, they had some really meaningful subtext in their narratives to do about like how politicians, because the Slitheen in those stories are supposed to represent silly politicians who who care about themselves and don't care about the people, and are basically even like want to harm people just for the case of money, and they're greedy, and that's what the whole fat thing comes along. And that was their idea, that was their stick in a way. It's Russell T Davis's hate on capitalism and the conservative parties and just all of these political theming ideas that makes it very strange that a Slitheen would appear in this series. Not so strange, because like I've said, they did have elements that would work in this series, but yeah. But in this story, the subtext has changed somewhat. Something which would actually, I think a lot of people can agree, would hugely benefit the Slitheen. The Slitheen would actually now become a prominent villain for the Sarah Jane adventures, making them one of the few recurring monsters to Sarah Jane. And I think this series was a much better outlet for them, and the change of subtext for them, which we'll get onto when we talk about the story, just fits them so much better, and it's just I think Slitheen as a concept just worked better here. We'll get onto that in a bit. So anyway, the story starts off. No, wait, sorry. Before I actually get into the story, this is the official BBC cover. This is from the Series 1 box set, which I've shown off a few times. But this story is the first two-parter on the disc, so I printed out my own DVD cover. This is... I don't actually know who made this. I can't remember who made this. I don't think it was Christopher DVD Covers, because usually it says on the back. Aha! Aquatine 64. I made that same mistake last time, I just remembered. There's the cover. It's alright. It's pretty decent. I don't know why they picked her, this character, here as somebody to be in the photo, because she's a very minor character in the series, but in this episode. But yeah, it's very strange. And here's the spine with the TARDIS logo, because the Doctor does not appear. And here is the spine, the back. Sorry. So there you go. That's the that is the DVD. So anyway, onto the story at hand. Luke is starting his first day at school. After the events of Invasion of the Bane, where Luke has been adopted by Sarah Jane as his adopted son, as her adopted son, sorry, and they start off the first day at school, and that's mainly the big plotline, as Luke is very nervous. He doesn't know how to interact with people, seeing as he's only technically a day old, I think, at this point. I don't think it was established how the time difference between this story and the previous story. I would presume it's the next day, but Maria has literally just moved into her house. Did she go to the same and her new school on the second day of moving into a new house? Well, that seems kind of strange to me, but I have no idea. And also, this is the start of a term, so the parents must have timed this perfectly. And so Maria basically being new to the school, and so with Luke, they kind of have this bond to stick together, where they meet Clive, and he seems to be a new kid as well. But out of the three, he seems to be the most normal, and he takes an instant liking to Maria as a friend. There doesn't seem to be implying any relationship there, however that could change later on in the series, but so far there seems to be no relationship in that regard, but he gets an instant liking to her as a friend, and he kind of has this really nice quirky attitude with her. However, he takes a somewhat a disliking to Luke at first, as he is a very strange individual. When teachers start farting in the school, everybody seems to laugh except for Luke, who questions why it is funny. He also seems to be unaware that being kissed by your mum on your first day of school is an embarrassing concept, and he also explains to Luke, explains to Clive how he, like, Luke doesn't seem normal, and Clive points that out, and Luke doesn't know how to process that. We get this absolutely gorgeous scene after the first day of school, where Luke goes back to Sarah Jane and is just like, I don't like it there, I'm nervous, I make these social mistakes, can I just stay here, can I be homeschooled? And Sarah Jane is like, I've thought about it, but I think you need a normal life, you need to feel like you're a normal, real person, and I know it's terrible, I know it's nervous, we're all new to this, I've never been a mum before, you've never been in school before, but we just got to take things one step at a time. It will get better, it will be kinder, and that is this kind of plot there between them. As this is going on, it turns out the Slitheen have actually basically planted themselves in this school, taking the form of a very fat headmaster and I can't remember if it's a maths teacher or a science teacher. I think it's a science teacher, yeah, because he talks about physics and stuff. And they have these really, really goofy scenes. And to say that these actors aren't performing, overacting, is immensely understated. These actors are playing it way up. And I just had like flashbacks of 60s Batman episodes in which villains, they would talk like this and we will conquer the world. They talk like that constantly. Every time they get scenes where there's no pupils around and they're discussing like their evil plans, they talk like that. It's like, oh, these miserable people will be destroyed. And with these kids, these stupid, smelly kids. The overacting is immensely fun. And this story, because it's targeted at a much more kid-friendly audience, the cheesiness of it doesn't feel so out of place compared to the rest of the story. Now, it turns out the Slitheen have been taking over a few schools around the world and have implanted this this new IT building in each of their compartments. However, there is a room seemingly missing from each building that they have made in each school that they have produced. Now, as I was saying with the Slitheen, they have their properties in the narrative have somewhat changed from being an allegory of politicians and their greediness and just how much they care so little about the people that they should be looking after. Here, it is a fun little, well, I say little, it's a fun slapstick parody of the school teachers you hated at school. Whereas kids didn't like school and hated that these teachers are somewhat aggressive towards them, and they feel like they're being harsh for seemingly no reason. I can imagine a lot of kids getting a kick out of this premise, and this is something which I think, and this is something which I mentioned earlier on, I think hugely benefits the appeal of the Slitheen, because the Slitheens are a silly concept, and putting them into an allegory which can go silly, which can go a lot more in depth, like the idea of teachers farting is a very silly concept, but it seems to fit more than politicians farting, and we get some and the scene then quickly tries to try and take itself seriously. Here we never get that. The scenes of the Slitheen are always played silly unless they are out in their real forms, and this is the contrast of the Slitheen here and the teachers and their allegory that, you know, they are the greedy teachers that care so little about the pupils. In fact, they hate them. They hate the smell. They hate the way they talk. There's an incredibly hilarious scene where Clive and Luke are in the class, and Luke has this this moment where basically he reveals to the teacher that he is a genius, going into all of this detail. However, Clive has secretly been eating these sandwiches, these pickle, I can't remember what he said, I think it was pickle onions, a sandwich, and the Slitheen kind of like grabs the bag with these scissors clippers, and he's just kind of like, and he kind of like throws it in a box, and then he's kind of like, you can collect it after school, but for now you have to eat the food from the canteen like everyone else. As Clive is like, that's disgusting, because it's revealed that the food here is absolutely disgusting, with Clive and Maria bonding over a meal. However, there's mould and gone off, and the food is gone off, and it's absolutely vile. And so they try to complain with the teacher, but the teacher is just like, oh, you can just pick off all the nice bits and you just eat those, instead of being actually concerned about this. Just the overall concept of the Slitheen here, I think, work a lot better. And yes, they are played way over the top. And yes, you can't take them seriously as a villain here. However, they're just so fun and just so entertaining. They don't really have much in terms of character development or a real sense of progression in the narrative. Their scenes are mainly just concerned with them just overacting and making these silly facial expressions. But it works here, as it gives us time to develop our characters, as well as setting up this atmosphere that this series is going for. And it really just seems to click together in terms of how the story feels and how the story's atmosphere is. And so Sarah Jane goes to investigate the company that's been making all of these buildings, and she has a discussion with one of the secretaries at one point, to which she's just like, leave now, nothing bad will come of you. And Sarah Jane's just like, are you threatening me? Yes, I am. And don't say I didn't warn you. You have it all. It's all on you. And then it's revealed that this secretary woman is actually a Slitheen. Now, during the scene in which Luke has publicly revealed that he's a genius of some sort, this gives the Slitheen this idea. So you see, they've been developing this technology of sorts, which has been draining energy from the local area. In fact, there's been a power cut on Bannerman Road, and we get scenes in which Maria turns a torch on, but the battery quickly goes off, and her father tries to light a candle, only for the candlelight to dissipate as he's doing it. Back in Sarah Jane's house, all the computers turned off as she was doing some journalism work, but she uses her device on her wrist, some sort of alien technology, which then also goes off, which according to Sarah Jane is impossible. This must be alien connected. I just realised I've talked the scenes out of sync. That comes before she learns about the Slitheen's involvement in the story. And so she gets chased on this. The cliffhanger for this is very reminiscent of their cliffhanger in Aliens of London, as the Slitheen tackle our main characters from all different locations. With Sarah Jane gets attacked by one Slitheen. The school kids actually break into the school at night, and because the Slitheen are kind of suspicious of this, they also reveal themselves. They also befriend a kid in this school who seemingly is there overnight, but it turns out he is not a pupil. He is one of the Slitheen, as we get our first introduction to a kid Slitheen, a small, like, tiny version of a Slitheen. This is so easily part of marketing, but I love it. It's so adorable. And the fact that no other series that be targeted to kids can have this cute little thing. Oh, look at this cute little thing that wants to slaughter and cut your throat open. It's just it's just, I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but it's just so silly, it's so ridiculous, and it's just so goofy, but the story goes with this self-awareness, and I also like how, despite the story being incredibly goofy, our main characters don't break out of character. Sarah Jane still takes this situation incredibly seriously. Luke never breaks out of character. Maria never breaks out of character. Clive, who's slowly learning through this, kind of gets a little bit more cocky, but that's kind of his character, that he is this cocky, like, everyday man kind of individual. And throughout this story, he befriends Luke, as him and Luke have these discussions where Luke is basically learning from him how to be normal, how to advance, and sometimes they get off the wrong feet. As at one point Clive is like, I know weird people, but you two are just the most weirdest I've ever met. And Luke is just like, well, go find some more normal people then. Like, that kind of tells you where they stand in that time of the relationship. But their relationship slowly develops more into a friendship, which becomes hugely prominent in the rest of the series, as Luke and Clive would basically be the best buds of the story. And some of the best Sarah Jane adventure scenes would comprise of these two characters. There's also this whole idea of calling Sarah Jane Mum, as Sarah Jane is just like, oh, don't call me Mum, just call me Sarah Jane, it's fine. But after Clive learns about how Luke was adopted by Sarah Jane and how Luke didn't have any parents beforehand, because Clive is like, that's wrong, you should be calling her Mum, and he even confronts Sarah Jane at one point later on in the episode. But anyway, the Slitheen actually trick Luke to actually solve their problem, as their device, this machine that they have created, doesn't work, as it shortens out and overloads quite quickly. However, they get Luke to secretly, because they kind of realise he's socially awkward, so they give him a sort of like a school problem, which turns out to be one of the circuits, and Luke, fascinated by this, works it out for them before realising that the Slitheen, it was all part of Slitheen. I just realised I'm talking this story way out of order, but I just think the story is mainly fun, and just talking it like in order kind of is like there's nothing really there, so it's kind of like bubbling around in my head somewhat. I don't know where I've gone. So the Slitheen have basically found a way to basically destroy all energy source from the world, and they are going to try and profit from it in some way of capacity. They will find a way to profit some way from Earth, but that's not their true goal. That's not the reason why they're doing this. We later learn later on in the episode, as Sarah Jane basically learns the name Slitheen, and she learns from Mr. Smith that the Slitheen have been here before, and they have been destroyed once before. And then Sarah Jane makes the connection, Slitheen in Downing Street, something that Rose had told her in the episode School Reunion. And yes, the irony that this story is also set predominantly in a school, and Sarah Jane's first story was also set in a school in the revived series, isn't lost on me. So they go in and investigate, and they go down, and they have this discussion where Clive, basically the gang are together. They're going to go to the school, try and take down the Slitheen. Only now the machine is activated, draining all energy from the Earth. Not even Sarah Jane's sonic lipstick works. So they don't actually know how they can defeat the Slitheen. I also like in this story how Elizabeth Slaton can't pronounce Raxifocorius Fallabatorius, so she gets Luke to say it. I don't know. I just find that incredibly amusing, and every time Sarah Jane needs to say it. She kind of just like hints to Luke to say it, and he instantly gets it, and there's that bond there. And so they go to try and take the school down. Clyde quickly puts together that there's something in the food that they didn't like from that earlier scene in the school where they took his food away from him. But then it's quickly revealed that their weakness to vinegar. It is vinegar. Although in this story they also have some sort of secondary weakness. Strong smells can kind of nauseate them, so that they're hard. So people can run away from them. The idea of giving Slitheen's two weaknesses might make them feel much less of a threat. But like I said, the story's mainly focused on them anyway, as a silly, goofy villain, mainly for amusement. And they go into the school where they each get kidnapped, not before Maria actually kills one of the Slitheen. Now, this is something I find hilarious, because this is a kids show, this is a kid-friendly show, so clearly you can't talk about like how kids killing and stuff like that. But Maria kills a Slitheen, and because it can't deal with those kind of dark concepts, the characters are just like, hooray, we did it! Instead of Maria's like, hooray! Oh wait, we just killed someone. Oh no, I've got a taste for blood. I don't like the scene of the Snyder cut of Revenge of Slitheen. Come on, we all know that you want it. But anyway, so they all get captured. They basically are it's like, we're gonna take over the world on your stupid planet. And it turns out that these Slitheen are actually because Slitheen is not the alien race name, it's the name of the family, and they are getting revenge for the deaths of their family members from Aliens of London and World War III and Boomtown. Now, of course the episode is called Revenge of Slitheen, but that's something that the story has kind of had criticisms for. Like they've never met Sarah Jane before. What are they getting revenge on? But there is dialogue that basically puts out they're getting revenge on the Earth. They're getting revenge for the deaths of their family members. But I kind of understand why people don't get it, because this mention of the family members, and that's their main motivation, is to destroy the Earth to get revenge for their family members, is so quick and so abrupt. I understand how anyone could miss that. But I will state though, it is actually mentioned why the story is called Revenge of the Slitheen in this story. So if you're ever wondering why, that's why. Luke actually comes up with this plan in which he basically lies to them and says that he got it wrong. He got the equations wrong. He got it right, but he didn't know that they're trying to absorb energy from the sun, and that will overload their circuit. So I need to sort it out for you before it kills all of us, including you Slitheens. And they fall for his ploy, and the Slitheen gets tricked by Luke, and Luke activates changes the technology so that the building is about to explode. And we get a scene then of the Sarah Jane Adventure team running out to the door, and two Slitheen, the son and the parent, trying to get through the door, and they're trapped. And they begged the Sarah Jane for their help. And I love how the father one is just like, well, just save my son at least. He's only 12 years old. Please. And Sarah Jane actually is like, Luke, give me my sonic lipstick so I can help them. But it's too late, as an electrical surge taps into their body. I think it's clear by the way the scene is set that the younger one is teleported, whilst the older one, the father, had killed. But the Sarah Jane with this be happening in a fraction of a second, and the way it's composed, it looks like the kid has also died. And so our characters, the kids anyway, like, hooray, we did it. But Sarah Jane has this remorse. It's like, we just killed these aliens, these people. They might be aliens, but they're still people. And there was a young one died, and it kind of affects her because, you know, she is now a mother herself. She kind of can relate to the fear of losing a child. Later on, we get a scene of Clive talking to Mr. Smith, and we have this really odd moment where he's tampering with his systems and he gets an electric shock, and Mr. Smith talks in a very unlike his way, where he kind of laughs and kind of threatens him in a way. It's kind of played here as a joke, and this is actually a tease for something that will happen later on in the series. However, I do like this, the way this story arc is implemented here, because it just seems like this really strange, odd, jokey moment, which doesn't distract from what's happening now, but it's there. So, and it's, you know, and you don't really think much of it until you realise, oh yeah, that part is connected to this. That's very interesting. And we just get this absolute gorgeous scene of Sarah Jane and Luke talking to each other about parentage, and how Sarah Jane is like, she'll do best for him, and Luke just is just like, I love you, Mum, and starts hugging her, as Sarah Jane's face, she kind of can't process it, but she is glad, she is full of energy and life as she hugs her son, and that is how this story ends. So that's Revenge of the Slitheen. Overall, it's a lot of fun, it's goofy, it's silly. If you are a huge fan of stuff like the 60s Batman series and stuff that has that cheesy, corny, almost campy factor, I think you will have a huge blast here. However, it's nothing too deep, it's nothing too dark and serious. There's some unintentionally funnily dark moments, like kid murdering Slitheens, but overall, the story's main purpose is fun, it's enjoyment, and the pacing of it and the idea of making these stories two-parter really benefit the story. I also feel like the Slitheen work a lot better here, and as far as I've seen, this is easily my favourite Slitheen story. They are played with so much glee, they're so over the top, that I just can't help but laugh every time that they're on screen. So, there you go. That is the Sarah Jane Adventures episode, Revenge of the Slitheen. So join me next time when Donna Noble experiences a brand new world with the Doctor on audio form, as she is experiencing a planet that has a huge insect problem. So join me next time for Pest Control, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!